Hi, I'm Paul Wilkie, and I'm very excited to be here today to talk with Advantage Accounting Tax CEO Kash Sharfi about a topic that's been kind of been talked about throughout and beyond and during the pandemic, and that's the IRS's employee retention credit. Kash, thanks for being here today.
Thanks, Paul. Happy to be here.
There have been so many questions about the pause that the IRS recently announced on the ERC funding program. Can you give us a brief understanding of what this was and why the IRS did this?
So, as you mentioned, the ERC is the Employee Retention Credit Program. It's a great way for companies that maintained payroll in the midst of the madness of COVID a couple years ago can replenish their balance sheet so they can continue growing and contributing to the local economies in which they're and where they reside. The reason that the IRS put a pause or a moratorium is the official word as of September 15th is really to help clients or help small businesses avoid fraud. There has been a lot of noise and a lot of press regarding this program. Prior to the moratorium, it was difficult for somebody to turn on the local news or national sports or national news programming or listen to the radio without getting bombarded by ERC advertisements. And so there's really two specific things that the IRS is trying to do. The first is prevent fraud. With this program, there are a lot of ERC mills is the official term, but they are companies that are marketing focused and have nothing to do with accounting, tax, or payroll, but they propped up to take advantage of this credit. And the service has found that there's an awful lot of fraud that's out there. And when I'm talking about fraud, it's really as simple as records or numbers that are made up, that aren't substantiated. So an example would be if a company had, call it 5 people on payroll in 2020, all of a sudden reporting that they had 50. That sort of fraud is something that the IRS noticed that there's a great amount of, and they want to really cut it out. The second thing is, given all the noise around the program and all the commercials that are out there, the IRS wants to protect small companies from aggressive usurious users or aggressive companies that may not have their due diligence and their internal processes down. We, like other firms within the space, are a CPA firm, and therefore, we have a license and we've got dozens of people that have experience dealing with the IRS. What the IRS wants to do is protect taxpayers from ERC mills that are pure marketing companies that are trying to induce them to apply for this credit when they may or may not be justifiably qualified for it. That's really what they're trying to do, is prevent fraud and protect taxpayers.
With that in mind, are there any sort of hidden reasons behind why the IRS did this? What does this mean now for the funding program itself? Does it mean funding will not continue?
No, this is actually our government is often unpredictable in the way that it acts. But in dealing with the IRS, we have learned that over time, there are certain things that they're trying to accomplish, and they'll do a series of steps to get there. So in this case, the intent is not to shut the program down. The IRS, the Treasury Department, realizes what a great program that is and how it can be really beneficial to companies that qualify for it. What they're trying to do is eliminate the bad actors. So the program is not going away. It's very much still around. This is a pause to help them get their arms around the extensive level of fraud, to issue indictments where there have been illegal activities that have taken place, and to help make sure that small businesses really apply for this credit in the right way so they steer very clear of any issues that may get them in trouble. So the program isn't going away. It's actually a good thing for the good actors because it'll separate some of the bad actors out, some of the bad processes out from the industry.
That's great to know. And you've touched on the ERC mills a lot and the bad actors involved, behind sort of get rich quick and predatory procedures. Has the IRS given clear direction on not using these types of places or how they're marketing? And if they have or haven't, what are some pieces of advice that you can provide?
They, to their credit, they certainly have. They have provided guidance that's basically a warning, a red light to business owners not to use ERC mills that overpromise and perhaps underdeliver. The IRS is encouraging small businesses to use a trusted tax advisor or a payroll company that has been around, has a track record of experience dealing with the government, and also is one that will be around for the long haul. The IRS often, when they issue a new dictate, or if there's a new feature of the tax code that comes out, it takes them a few years to let that run through the system. So it is likely that if and when people get audited for this program, and audit rates tend to be fairly manageable, but if and when an audit comes, the same way that if somebody gets audited for their personal or their corporate tax return, they want to make sure that the CPA that did that work for them is available to help explain what's going on when an audit or review comes down. So in the case of ERC, if there's questions from the IRS in 6 months or 2 years, small businesses should use someone who will be around that can help them answer those questions and navigate through the IRS's procedures. A lot of these quote unquote ERC mills, they're really here today and they'll be gone tomorrow. They don't have a track record prior to the launch of this program, and they won't have a track record after the program expires, or even prior, they'll be exiting. And another thing that they do, that some of these ERC mills do, is that they really overpromise to a small business person. They may tell a small business person, you're going to get $1 million or you're going to get it in a week. That just isn't the case. If it sounds too good to be true, it usually is. In our firm and in other reputable providers, it takes us weeks of painstaking work to make sure that we're doing the calculations and the credits right for our clients. There's really no shortcuts. And so if a provider purports to offer shortcuts or a way to get $1 million in a week, that should be a pretty big red flag that I need to not go forward with this provider.
I think you and the team at Advantage Accounting and Tax have done an excellent job of communicating why you should go with a licensed, trusted tax professional. To shift, and you touched on it a little bit. What are some other red flags that you may want to look for?
Yeah, I think the biggest ones are a big amount of money in a short amount of time that's not realistic. A second one that follows very closely with that is the statement to the effect of, we don't really need to get many documents from you. We'll figure it out. That's not the case. Before the government's going to issue a credit, we go through a painstaking process to verify a company's payroll records. And these are things that are fairly black and white. It's going into a payroll system and drawing out records from the past. There should be no room for there's not a lot of gray area or creativity here in terms of getting the numbers. The numbers are the numbers. So if you hear anyone telling you that, yeah, we don't need to look at your numbers, that's also a red flag. And then the third thing that I would really caution people to hesitate about is, the IRS and our government, like any organization, they do the best they can with the limited resources that they have. And they have more work to do than they've got time in which to complete that work. So they have to prioritize as well. I would also beware of any organization that is painting out the IRS to be a boogeyman or some sort of enemy that has the devil behind them, because that's not the case. The IRS does yeoman's work for our country. They bring in just about every dollar of revenue that our government spends on roads and schools and keeping the environment clean, all those sorts of things. It's our job as a CPA firm to partner with the IRS, figure out what they're looking for and make their jobs easier. And our job is not to demonize them. They're doing good work as part of our country. So any provider that tells you you're going to get $1 million in a week, that you don't need a lot of documents, or the IRS is purely evil and we figured out how to hoodwink them, those are things that would make me want to run in the other direction.
Sound advice, Kash. I appreciate that. If anyone has questions about ERC or would like to get more information, where should they go?
Yeah, so our website is fairly simple. It's advantage.cpa. And the person on our team that is running point on this, a gentleman named Nick. So it's NYK at advantage.cpa, www.advantage.cpa.
Kash, thank you so much. I think this has been very informative. And if you want to know more about ERC, contact the folks at Advantage Accounting and Tax.
Thank you, Paul.